What if the quiet old man you care for in a retirement home turns out to be the family your mother thought was lost forever? When Nina discovers a hidden photo, her world is turned upside down, and a heartbreaking secret comes to light. Stay tuned for a deeply moving story about forgiveness, second chances, and the incredible power of family bonds that can survive anything. Nina had always been drawn to quiet places, and Willow Grove Retirement Home suited her gentle spirit. The halls were peaceful, lined with photographs of residents in happier times. She took pride in her work, moving from room to room with a steady hand and a kind word for everyone. Her first assignment was Mr. Evans, a new resident who kept mostly to himself. He rarely spoke and seemed content to watch the seasons change outside his window. Other caregivers whispered that he had been through a lot, but no one knew much for sure. Nina treated Mr. Evans with respect, bringing him tea at the same time each morning and chatting about her life, even if he never responded. She noticed he flinched at the mention of certain names and sometimes gripped the arms of his wheelchair when he was anxious. Still, she believed everyone had a story, and she wondered about his. One evening, while straightening up his small room, Nina accidentally knocked over a stack of old books. As she bent to pick them up, she noticed a corner of paper tucked under the drawer liner in his bedside table. Curiosity got the better of her, and she gently pulled it free. It was a faded photograph, an old family portrait. Her breath caught as she recognized her own mother as a young child, standing beside a smiling man who looked just like the younger version of Mr. Evans. Confusion and shock swept over her. How could this be? Nina looked from the photograph to the man in the wheelchair, searching for answers in his lined face. At that moment, the line between her past and present blurred, and Nina knew her life was about to change in ways she could not have imagined. The photograph weighed heavily on Nina's mind as she moved through her duties the next day. Every time she entered Mr. Evans' room, she caught herself glancing at him, searching for a trace of the man she thought she recognized. She started to mention little details about her own family in casual conversation, carefully watching his reaction. When she spoke of her mother's favorite childhood song, she noticed the way his hands trembled just a bit more. At times, he grew tense and withdrawn, staring at his hands or the window, unwilling to meet her eyes. She tried to piece together the stories she had heard from her own family, memories of a grandfather who had vanished long ago, leaving only questions and quiet sadness behind. Her mother never spoke of it in detail, but Nina remembered the look in her eyes whenever the subject came up. The family believed he was gone forever. The days passed slowly, each one deepening Nina's curiosity and uncertainty. Other staff members at Willow Grove began to notice her interest in Mr. Evans, and a few asked if she was related to him. Nina brushed off their questions, unsure of what to say until she had answers of her own. She began to feel the strain of balancing her professional role with her growing need to understand the truth. Mr. Evans grew more guarded, sensing the shift in Nina's attitude. He became quieter than ever, only occasionally glancing in her direction. Nina wondered if he suspected what she was starting to believe. Still, she was determined to find out. The photograph had opened a door she could not close, and she knew the answers she sought were closer than ever, hidden behind the sorrow and silence of the man she cared for every day. One quiet afternoon, Nina gathered her courage and brought the photograph with her to Mr. Evans' room. She sat beside him and for a long moment simply held the old picture in her hands. He watched her with wary eyes, his posture tense as if he sensed what was coming. The soft hum of distant conversation from the hallway faded away, leaving only the hush of their small corner of the world. Nina finally spoke, her voice gentle but steady. She told him about her family's search for answers and the empty seat at every holiday dinner. She described how her mother kept a single faded letter, signed with love by the father she never saw again. Then, with trembling hands, she placed the photograph on his lap. He stared at it for a long time, the lines in his face deepening as memories surfaced. Mr. Evans' shoulders shook, and he drew a shaky breath. He confessed he was the man in the photograph, her mother's father, who had left after a terrible tragedy. His voice cracked as he admitted that guilt and shame had kept him away, and he believed it was better for everyone if he vanished from their lives. "I failed them once," he whispered, eyes shining with tears. "Please don't let me fail again." Nina's own eyes filled as she listened. She felt anger, sadness, and a quiet sense of understanding. The truth was more complicated than she had ever imagined. As she sat with her grandfather, the years of separation and longing settled between them, heavy but not unbearable. The secrets that once divided them now offered a chance for healing, if only they were brave enough to take the first step together. Nina chose to stay with her grandfather long after her shift had ended, drawn by the quiet need in his eyes. She began to ask questions about his life, and for the first time, Mr. Evans opened up. He told her stories from his youth, memories filled with laughter and regret, and slowly described the events that led to his disappearance. He spoke of the accident that changed everything, the guilt that grew heavier with each passing year, and the fear that his family would never forgive him. Nina listened with patience and compassion, offering gentle reassurances that she wanted to understand, not judge. Over the following days, Nina brought him small pieces of the life he had missed. She read him letters from her mother and showed him new family photos, each one bridging the distance that years of silence had built. With her encouragement, Mr. Evans found the strength to write a letter to his daughter, expressing his sorrow and his hope for forgiveness. Nina promised to deliver it, feeling a responsibility she could not turn away from. The change in Mr. Evans was not unnoticed. Other residents and staff at the retirement home saw him smile for the first time in years and found him eager to join in afternoon games or listen to music in the lounge. The shadows in his eyes faded a little every day. Nina found hope growing in her own heart, too. She realized that giving her grandfather a second chance was also a gift to herself and her mother, a way to reclaim the part of their story that had been missing for so long. With each visit, healing replaced old pain, and together they began to imagine a future where their family could be whole again. The day Nina's mother arrived at Willow Grove was bright and full of quiet hope. Nina met her at the door, both nervous and excited, and together they walked to Mr. Evans' room. He waited by the window, hands folded in his lap, a letter resting beside him on the table. When Nina's mother entered, she paused in the doorway, searching his face for traces of the man she remembered from her childhood. At first, the silence was thick with emotion. Mr. Evans offered a trembling apology, his voice softer than Nina had ever heard. He admitted his mistakes and told her he had thought of her every day, haunted by regret and longing. Nina's mother listened, her eyes brimming with tears, before finally moving to sit beside him. She took his hand, and the years of separation seemed to melt away just a little. The visit was quiet, filled with gentle conversation and pauses that spoke as much as words. Nina watched as my mother and grandfather found a tentative peace, each step forward made possible by forgiveness. They shared memories, laughed softly at old stories, and mourned the time they had lost. In those hours, something fragile and hopeful began to grow. After that day, visits became regular. Nina often found the two talking by the garden or sharing a cup of tea. Mr. Evans regained a sense of belonging he had not felt in decades. The retirement home, once a place of quiet resignation, now echoed with laughter and the sounds of family coming back together. Nina felt grateful for the chance to help mend what had once been broken. As the seasons changed outside, their hearts slowly healed, proving that even after years apart, love and forgiveness could give them all a new beginning.